the story begins. On an icy cold night, thousands of masked warriors moved in perfect unison, charging toward a figure known only as the Heavenly Demon. It was clear he had been expecting them. Though they numbered in the thousands, these were elite soldiers from the demonic cult, united in one purpose, to bring down the Heavenly Demon. Seeing their approach, he calmly said, "Blood, fear, and chaos. Is that truly what you seek? If that's what you really desire, then allow me to grant it to you, right here, right now." With that, he extended one hand and prepared to strike. In the blink of an eye, the thousands of warriors rushing toward him were slaughtered in the most brutal fashion. Their bodies were ripped apart, completely reduced to blood and pulp. Nothing remained of them. His attack was so savage, the entire battlefield was soon soaked in a crimson downpour of fresh blood. Standing beneath that rain of gore, the Heavenly Demon muttered, "Is this all you're capable of? Pathetic. You really think this is enough to defeat me?" The candidates for the next Heavenly Demon stood frozen in place. They never imagined their entire force would be obliterated with a single strike. The Heavenly Demon then unleashed another power, focused in the palm of his hand. While calling them weak, he watched as they launched a desperate group attack, hoping to overpower him. But before they could land a single blow, their bodies were torn apart, shredded into bits by a storm of raw energy. Screaming in agony, they were all slaughtered in the most gruesome way imaginable. Laughing, the Heavenly Demon declared, "Take a good look. Use your own eyes and witness the true might of a technique known as the Soul-Devouring Demonic Art." As soon as he activated that forbidden art, the ground began to shake violently, and then, out of nowhere, two massive hands emerged from beneath the earth. Realizing what was happening, the remaining warriors panicked and tried to flee, but it was too late. In mere seconds, those giant hands hovered above their heads and then came crashing down, crushing everything in their path. With terrifying force, the hands grabbed hold of the remaining warriors and crushed them along with the surrounding rocks. One of them, barely conscious, muttered weakly, "Is it truly impossible to defeat the Heavenly Demon?" At that moment, their souls were ripped from their bodies, floating into the air, only to be drawn straight into the Heavenly Demon himself. Soaked in blood and surrounded by carnage, he let out a long breath. Then, grinning with satisfaction after annihilating every last enemy, he burst into laughter. So, these were the last of the Heavenly Demon candidates, but from what I've seen, not a single one of them was worthy of the title. Calmly, he glanced around at the devastation he had caused. All he could see was a battlefield littered with thousands of corpses. Muttering to himself, he said, "This place has become so quiet. Perhaps peace is nothing more than a dream in a world ruled by war and drenched in oceans of blood." But suddenly he felt an excruciating pain surge through his chest, an aftermath of using that forbidden martial art. Blood began pouring from his mouth as the devastating side effects took hold. Clutching his chest, he muttered, "Is this the price of using the soul-devouring demonic art? The immense power I gained from consuming thousands of souls? This was the inevitable cost of mastering such a demonic technique, the soul-devouring demonic art, a secret passed down only to the leaders of the demonic cult, an unrivaled power, but one that ultimately consumes its wielder from within." He whispered to himself, "Even if there's a price to pay, I believe I can bear it, unlike the other so-called heavenly demons who couldn't." Suddenly, a thunderous rumble echoed from within the darkness. From the shadows, thousands of glowing eyes stared at him with a terrifying, unrelenting gaze. As death crept closer, chains burst forth and wrapped around him, one after another, locking him in place and restricting every movement. But instead of fear, he let out a mocking laugh. "So, you're trying to drag me down to hell?" With a violent surge of power pulsing through his veins, he shattered the chains with ease. Roaring with fury, he shouted, "You who dares to force me into hell? If that's truly hell, then I'll walk into it on my own terms. Whether it's sulfur or eternal flames, I'll tread that path by my own will." But then, he fell silent. Something bright, blindingly bright, appeared before him. Slowly, his body began to tear apart, scattering and vanishing into the air. And just before he completely disappeared, a moment of clarity struck him. He realized the soul-devouring demonic art wasn't simply about consuming others' souls. Even though he had found the key to mastering it, it was already too late. With his fading voice, he whispered, "In my next life, I want to choose a different path, one far away from this one. All I wish for is a quiet, peaceful life." And with those final words, his soul vanished completely, claimed by death. The story now shifts to a tranquil place, untouched by war. A peaceful estate known as the home of the Golden Wall, a powerful merchant organization. There, a young man sat idly by a pond, staring at his reflection on the water's surface. From behind, a young servant named So-So called out, "Young master, you're here again. Please, let's return before your food gets cold." At those words, the young man instinctively prepared to strike, ready to kill the servant for speaking so casually. So-So's eyes widened in shock as he saw his master raise his hand, as if slicing through air to sever a neck. That young man was Byok Taeson, the second son of the Golden Wall merchant family. With a confused expression, Soso asked what had happened to him. It had been 10 days, and Taeson had been acting strange. But Taeson ignored the question. He stared at his own palm and muttered to himself, I can't believe I couldn't even sever such a thin neck. Damn it. Why is this pathetic body so weak? He then looked down into the pond again, examining his reflection. Frustrated, he grumbled, I hate this face. All I see is someone who looks like a woman. It turns out that the heavenly demon had awakened inside the body of Taeson, a frail young man. Not long after, he returned home to eat the meal prepared by Soso, but as he tried to eat, pain racked his body. Even holding a pair of chopsticks felt like a struggle. He muttered, This body is worse than garbage. Hearing this, Soso gently scolded him. Young master, please don't say things like that. I heard a brilliant physician is coming to treat you. You'll get better. Just have faith. Taeson scoffed. What could a physician I've never even heard of possibly do? Soso replied again, Young master, I've told you this so many times. You mustn't think like that. Positive thoughts bring positive outcomes. Taeson then murmured to himself, It's been 10 days since I woke up in this fragile body. Out of curiosity, I dug into who this body originally belonged to. His name is Byok Taeson, the second son of the Golden Wall merchant family, one of the most prominent clans in the Wuhan region. He has no parents, only an older brother who runs the family business. When I awakened, I realized this man's body was in a horrifying state. He suffers from an unusual illness no doctor has been able to cure. He's completely useless, can't even dress himself or feed himself. And the worst part? He has such a ridiculously handsome face. I feel disgusted just looking at it. But the biggest problem of all is that all his meridians are severed. He could die at any moment. Damn it, I can't believe I was given a dying body for my second life. For now, I'll focus on staying alive. I'll temporarily use soul energy to reconnect the broken meridians, then gradually reinforce them until they're fully healed and stabilized. But there's a catch. The only way to do that is by using the Soul-Devouring Demonic Art. The real issue is, how do I gather souls in this life? In my previous life, I could kill anyone and steal their soul without hesitation. But if I try that again in this life, I'll face the same consequences. I can't let that happen, not after being granted such a rare second chance. Just before I died, I uncovered a hidden truth about the Soul-Devouring Demonic Art. If I use it correctly, I may be able to reach an entirely new realm, one no heavenly demon has ever seen before. Later that day, Soso was stunned when Taeson said he wanted to go out for a walk. If you're planning to go somewhere, I'll accompany you, Soso offered. I know this city better than anyone. Casually, Taeson replied that he was going to a brothel for some business. Soso's face turned bright red in shock. Young master, perhaps it would be better if you brought one of the guards, maybe Cheon Kyungwan. But when she saw Taeson's blank stare, Soso quickly added, I'm sorry if I've overstepped, young master. I'm just surprised. This is the first time you've ever wanted to go to a place like that. Taeson smirked. If you want to come, then come with me. We're going to have some fun there. Annoyed, Soso blurted out, Absolutely not. That's no place for someone like me. A little later, as the afternoon wore on, Taeson was ready to head to the brothel in town. As she adjusted her master's clothes, Soso murmured to herself, I don't know why, but it feels like young master is acting differently. And now, out of the blue, he wants to go to a brothel. I'm so curious about what's happening to him. As the day grew later, Taeson asked where the person accompanying him to the brothel was. Soso replied, Please be patient, young master. I'm sure he'll arrive just in time. After all, he's someone who does nothing but train and protect you. Soso looked at him with a concerned expression, then added, Young master, I just hope you're not too hard on yourself. Hearing that, Taeson asked, What do you mean by that? Soso replied, Well, I've noticed you seem so desperate about your condition. I just hope you can hold on a little longer, at least until the doctor arrives to help you. Taeson murmured, After dealing with so many people hiding their true intentions behind masks, I've finally learned to distinguish between sincerity and deceit. So I'm quite sure the words and actions of this girl are nothing but genuine. At that moment, Taeson smiled, feeling that the warmth he received from her wasn't bad at all. Soso was taken aback when Taeson mentioned that the guard accompanying him had arrived. Sure enough, Soso was shocked to hear someone knocking at the gate. When Soso asked, How could he know when he doesn't even use martial arts? Taeson muttered, How could I not notice? He has such a powerful energy. As the figure stood before Taeson, he immediately bowed and said, Young master, it's been a long time since we last met. How are you feeling now? The guard was named Cheon Kyungwan, and he was one of the elite forces known as the Sword Dragon Troops. Seeing him, Taeson thought to himself, He's like a sword. His energy is strong and sharp, as if he could cut through anything in his path. I'm certain he's not just any elite guard. I can feel how long he's trained to reach this level. The Golden Wall merchant family. Could they be more than just ordinary people? A little while later, they arrived at the most famous brothel in the Wuhan region. It was called the Fragrant Flower House. one of the top 3 brothels in the city. After securing their horses in the stable, they quickly made their way to the entrance. However, Kyung-won stopped just before the door and said he would wait outside. Hearing this, Tae-san asked, "Aren't we both here at a brothel?" "What's your plan, just waiting outside?" Kyung-won responded, "Young master, I'll stand guard outside. I don't want anything to disturb you inside." But Kyung-won went silent when he heard Tae-san say, "Are you sure you can protect me from out here if something happens inside? So keep quiet and follow me, because we're going to enjoy ourselves until we're satisfied." Kyung-won still refused, saying that he couldn't go inside the brothel with Tae-san. With a sharp look, Tae-san said, "What can't you do? Is it enjoying yourself or following my orders?" Immediately, Kyung-won fell silent. His face turned pale as he felt the pressure of Tae-san's gaze. This was the first time he couldn't keep his composure. Then, patting Kyung-won on the shoulder, Tae-san spoke again. "If you can protect me while having fun, that would be great. But if you can't, at least stay close to me." Feeling nervous after being intimidated by Tae-san's intense gaze, Kyung-won had no choice but to obey his master's command. Seeing this, Tae-san couldn't help but smile, feeling satisfied that Kyung-won didn't resist him at all. He then led Kyung-won into the brothel, telling him that he could have as much fun as he wanted while they were there. As they entered, they were greeted by beautiful women who were the courtesans of the establishment. With confidence, Tae-san walked deeper into the room, eager not to waste any opportunity to enjoy himself with them. A while later, they entered a room where a feast had been prepared by the women. However, noticing that his guard was nowhere in sight, Tae-san asked the women if they knew where Kyung-won was. They explained that the guard was stationed by the entrance, as he didn't want to enter the banquet hall. Beside him, one of the women poured a glass of drink for Tae-san. They treated him kindly, aware that he was the second son of a very influential family in the Wuhan region. When Tae-san mentioned that he didn't want to drink the beverage, one of the women asked what they should do if he refused to drink it. Casually, Tae-san replied, "All I want to hear are the rumors people are saying about me." Tae-san thought that coming to a brothel, which had no connection to the Golden Wall family, was the best way to gather information. He continued, "Tell me everything you know about the second son of the Golden Wall family. If you tell me everything, I'll make sure we play 2 rounds as a reward." Soon after, Tae-san managed to get the information he was looking for. They told him that Tae-san had inherited 1,000 gold coins, a noble house, and several brothels. However, due to his declining health, he had lost his power and influence. As a result, all his remaining inheritance had been passed on to his older brother, Byok Tae-soo. Tae-san murmured, "This is a rumor everyone in Wuhan knows, but I would never have learned this if I had just stayed at home." Tae-san then stood up from his seat, saying he was ready to start with one of them. He added that he only wanted one woman tonight, as his current condition didn't allow him to enjoy himself with them all. At that moment, he chose a beautiful woman named Hwaryong to serve him and have fun with. When they were alone, Tae-san made his way to the bed and called Hwaryong to come closer. He then asked, "Hwaryong, tell me, how long have you been living in this brothel?" With a smile, Hwaryong replied that she had been living there for 10 years, ever since her parents had abandoned her. Hearing this, Tae-san simply smiled and then invited Hwaryong to start enjoying the night. Meanwhile, the other women whispered among themselves. They wondered, why did Tae-san only choose one woman tonight? At that moment, they questioned, can Tae-san really do much, given what they knew of his frail and weak condition? However, they were all suddenly shocked when they heard Hwaryong scream loudly. It was a sound that could not be distinguished between pain and pleasure. The scream echoed through the house, reaching even the lower floors. Everyone present there was stunned after hearing the scream. They were all curious. I wonder why that scream echoed so loudly, even though we know this room is soundproof. Laughing, one of them remarked, I didn't expect the second son to have such skills. Honestly, he's making me feel envious. Meanwhile, Hwaryong had been screaming for so long that it seemed like more than 3 hours had passed. However, what actually happened wasn't what they all thought. In reality, Tae-san had simply placed one of his hands on her forehead. With a blank expression, Tae-san was using a technique known as the Soul-Eater Demon Art to filter the woman's tainted soul essence. After a night filled with Hwaryong's screams echoing throughout the brothel, her voice finally began to fade. Soon after, the door to the room creaked open, and Tae-san stepped out without looking back. Seeing his master emerge, Kyung-won immediately asked if he was all right, since he hadn't left the room the entire night. Tae-san responded with only a smirk, glancing back into the room. Inside, Hwaryong lay helplessly on the bed, clearly drained of all strength. With a satisfied look, Tae-san said, Last night, it felt like I came back to life. It was refreshing. Then, without wasting time, he told Kyung-won they should head home and get some rest. After all, he was exhausted from such an incredible experience. Moments after Tae-san left, the other women in the brothel hurried into Hwaryong's room. With curious expressions, they bombarded her with questions. What had happened to make her scream so loudly? One of them even asked if Tae-san had given her some kind of drug, since her cries had reached the ground floor. But Hwaryong weakly replied, He didn't give me any drugs or anything like that. But I can't remember what happened. All I know is that my body feels incredibly light, like I've been reborn. The scene shifts to the Golden Wall household, where Soso was seen sweeping the courtyard of Taison's residence. As she worked, she sighed deeply. I'm really worried the young master might have passed out at the brothel. I'm not sure he's cut out for that kind of thing. Suddenly, her attention snapped toward the front gate as it creaked open. To her surprise, Taison and his guard appeared. Despite what had happened the night before, Taison looked composed and firm, showing no signs of fatigue at all. Soso rushed over and asked if he really went to the brothel, because from the looks of it, he seemed perfectly fine. If you're curious about what happened last night, Taison said calmly, ask Kyung-wan. He witnessed it all. But Kyung-wan was far too embarrassed to say anything. His face turned red, and he avoided her gaze. Puzzled, Soso whispered to herself, he looks totally fine. But did he really do that kind of thing? Later, back in his room, Taison sat down to meditate, cleansing his mind and soul after absorbing the corrupted essence of a courtesan. Slowly, he began to heal the broken meridians in his body, a result of a rare illness he suffered from. As he successfully reconnected a single thread of meridian, he opened his eyes and looked at his palms. From absorbing her soul essence, he muttered, I was only able to repair a tiny portion. Before my death, I came to a realization about the demonic soul-devouring art I had mastered. If I kill someone and absorb their soul, the side effects are devastating. It would put an unbearable burden on this body. So instead, I must purify the unstable thoughts in the minds of the living and absorb only their refined spiritual energy. That is the purest form of soul essence, the pinnacle of the demonic soul-devouring technique. The stronger their emotions, the stronger the energy they release. I tested it on a courtesan who had lived through countless hardships. And it worked. But the real problem is this cursed body. It's in far worse condition than I imagined. Whether I like it or not, I'll have to visit the brothel regularly. Only then can I absorb more souls and continue repairing my broken meridians. A few days later, the brothel was once again thrown into a frenzy as word spread that Taison had returned. The women rushed about excitedly. Wait, what? I thought he wasn't coming back because of his fragile and weak body. Was that just a rumor to make him seem less capable? What if, in reality, he's incredibly powerful? He's from a noble family, he's ridiculously handsome, and they say if you spend the night with him, you'll become even more beautiful, just like what happened to Hwaryong. He's the most manly man I've ever met. Not only is he good-looking, but he's also of noble blood. I've always dreamed of being with someone like him. Sure enough, when Taison appeared, the women swarmed to welcome him. Each one hoped to be chosen to accompany him for the night. They had gone out of their way to dress up and make themselves as attractive as possible, hoping to catch his eye. But not everyone was thrilled by his arrival. Watching from a distance with an annoyed expression was the owner of the brothel. She scoffed. I didn't expect that man to show up again. Someone nearby asked if they should improve the soundproofing this time, and she replied with clear irritation, We've tried multiple times, but nothing works. Every time he shows up, the women go running straight to him, making the soundproofing useless. Other customers have started complaining. They're being ignored because all the women are obsessed with him. And isn't it strange? How is someone who was on the brink of death hanging out in a place like this? Another voice hidden in the shadows joined the conversation. It belonged to an assassin. I heard he's become quite the problem around here. The other customers are clearly upset by his presence. Should I investigate the Golden Wall family? But the brothel owner quickly shut that idea down. Absolutely not. They're the top merchant family in all of Wuhan. If we start poking around their affairs carelessly, we'll be in big trouble. For now, just watch him from the shadows. I need to understand exactly what he does here every night. Meanwhile, Taison was scanning the room with his eyes. He noticed that Hwaryong's energy had become purified, while the woman beside her still gave off a strong, impure aura. But Taison wasn't interested in her. He needed something more intense. He turned to his guard and ordered, Bring all the girls here. I'll choose one myself tonight. A few minutes later, all the women in the brothel had gathered before him. The guard proudly introduced 3 of the most popular women there, certain that Taison would pick one of them. But Taison didn't even glance at them. They didn't carry enough of the energy he needed. Instead, his eyes locked onto someone standing quietly behind the others. Her aura was heavy, dark, and impure, exactly what he was looking for. Walking past the crowd, Taison declared, Listen carefully. I don't care about your opinions. I'll decide for myself who I'm interested in. The women were stunned. The 3 most beautiful sought-after women hadn't even caught his attention. Is he really not into us? They whispered, confused and embarrassed. Taison finally stopped in front of the woman with a heavy energy and asked, What's your name? With her head lowered and eyes lifeless, she softly replied, My name is Danyung. Taison gave her a small smile. Since I've chosen you, let's enjoy a beautiful night together. On the other side of the room, the women were whispering to each other. Could it be that the young master has a strange taste? Why else would he choose the worst one out of all of us? As Taison walked toward his room, he murmured to himself, To me, this woman feels like the embodiment of darkness itself. I can't even begin to imagine what she's been through. Her soul has been tainted, crushed under the weight of thick, oppressive shadows. She's exactly the kind of person I've been looking for. Her soul carries an overwhelming amount of sorrowful energy. It's dangerous, sure, but With the connection to the minor meridians already established, I believe I can handle it. I'll use her soul to connect the core meridian points in my body. But just as he was about to enter his room, Tae-san stopped in his tracks. He had spread a subtle energy formation, the heavenly seal array, to sense any hidden presence. Even though he had lost his martial arts and his mind had dulled since his days as the heavenly demon, at his core, he was still a true demon. Chuckling, Tae-san spoke aloud. "Someone's spying on me. I can feel it." He turned and asked Kyung-wan to lend him his sword. "I'll teach this intruder a lesson." Tae-san muttered, "Whoever's hiding here, he must be one of the top 100 martial artists ranked by the Martial Arts Alliance. I can sense him trying to hide up in the ceiling." Without a moment's hesitation, Tae-san hurled the sword straight into the ceiling. It landed perfectly, piercing right through the wooden beams. A drop of blood fell from above. Kyung-wan was stunned, his eyes wide as he stared at the blood. "Was that an assassin?" Unbothered, Tae-san casually replied, "He's still alive, even though I wounded him pretty badly." Then he mumbled to himself, "My speed has improved, but I still struggle with delicate movements." Meanwhile, Dan-young was visibly shaken. Her face had turned pale as she watched blood drip into the room. But Tae-san turned to Kyung-wan and calmly said, "Take care of the intruder. I've got more important things to do with Dan-young tonight." He turned to her with a gentle gaze. "I know this isn't your fault. You don't need to be afraid. The one to blame here is the owner of this place." With a small smile, he added, "So, what do you think? Shall we begin? Because I can't wait to absorb every last bit of soul energy I can." The scene shifts to a different location. Yon Manor. There, a young woman was quietly reading a book when one of her guards rushed over and said, "My lady, I've just heard that the young master has visited the brothel again." The woman looked up and asked, "Has he earned a nickname for going there so often?" The guard's name was Seo-yeon, and she was a personal bodyguard assigned to protect the young lady. Seo-yeon hesitated. She didn't want to hurt her mistress's feelings, but after being pressured, she reluctantly revealed what she had heard. "They call him the Night King of Fragrant Flower House, and also the man with unrivaled potency." The young lady's face darkened. Slamming her book shut, she threw her arms up and ordered, "Seo-yeon! Take me there. I want to speak to Tae-san. Now." That beautiful young woman was Yeon Haran, the only daughter of the Yeon family, and the fiancé chosen for Tae-san through an arranged engagement. As the day turned to noon, Tae-san decided it was time to leave the brothel and return home. But just as he stepped outside, he found Kyung-wan waiting for him. Kyung-wan explained that he had come to escort Tae-san back to his residence. However, Kyung-wan was taken aback when he sensed the powerful energy radiating from Tae-san. In a cold tone, Tae-san asked what Kyung-wan had done with the assassin they captured the night before. Kyung-wan replied that he had locked the assassin in the basement beneath the Dragon Corps training grounds. Hearing that, Tae-san nodded and said it was a good decision, because he intended to speak with the assassin personally. Kyung-wan muttered to himself, "The energy radiating from the young master is extraordinary. Is he really the same second son I once knew?" Not only had his energy changed, but his demeanor and behavior were also completely different. He even possessed an incredible skill. He had managed to accurately strike an assassin hiding in the ceiling. Upon inspecting the ceiling, Kyung-wan discovered that Tae-san hadn't stabbed at random. He had pierced precisely through the gap between the wooden boards. Somehow, Kyung-wan thought, he feels like an entirely different person now. Just his gaze and words alone are intimidating. Moments later, the two began walking home together. As they passed cherry blossom trees in full bloom lining the streets, Tae-san murmured to himself, "I've successfully opened one of my meridian points. It's already brought a significant improvement to my body and senses. But there are still 6 more to go before I can fully restore this body's power. The road ahead is long, but at least I've moved past being trash. Who would have thought I'd feel this happy over such a small achievement? For some reason, in this second life, I feel like I've changed a lot." Suddenly, during their walk, Tae-san came across a beautiful woman walking alongside her guards. It turned out she was Yeon Haran, his fiancée. Seeing her, Tae-san thought, "Who is this woman? And why is she looking at me like that?" To be honest, she's breathtaking, absolutely perfect. Among all the women I met when I was the heavenly demon, she easily ranks in the top 10 in terms of beauty. A rare kind of beauty, the kind that's almost impossible to find. Then, Haran spoke, "Young master, did you go to the brothel again today to enjoy yourself with those women?" Tae-san didn't respond right away. He thought to himself, "I've never seen this woman before. Could she be someone this body knew? I don't think the original Tae-san was an idiot." Blushing, Haran spoke again. "Are you acting like this because you're unhappy with our engagement? Is this your way of trying to push me away, to make me hate you and leave?" Tae-san was stunned. He never expected this beautiful woman to be the fiancée of the body he had taken over. Haran stepped closer and said, "Even if you're doing this on purpose, I won't give up on you, so please don't give up on me either." Looking at her up close, Tae-san thought again. From a distance, I ranked her in the top 10, but now that I see her face clearly, she easily makes the top 3. But what is she talking about? I've never had her in the first place. This is the first time I've even met her. How could I possibly give up on someone this beautiful? Then, Taesan finally spoke. That's not what I'm doing. And no, I will never give up on you. Hearing those words, Heron immediately smiled, her face glowing with a beauty that was simply breathtaking. She said softly, Young master, you finally acknowledged the feelings I've kept hidden for so long. Just for you. At that moment, her eyes were brimming with tears, and her heart was overflowing with emotion, stirred by the warmth swelling inside her. Taesan, who had never experienced such an exchange of feelings before, felt awkward being near Heron, so he chose to walk away, leaving the two of them behind. As he walked, Taesan muttered to himself, I can't believe a woman has made me feel so uneasy. And I was the heavenly demon. Damn it, women are truly formidable enemies. Back where they had stood, Heron watched Taesan walk away. A gentle smile played on her red lips, so beautiful that anyone who saw it would be utterly captivated. Suddenly, Taesan noticed something strange. He saw Kyung-won walking far ahead of him, and wondered why Kyung-won had gone on without him. Unbeknownst to anyone, Kyung-won's face was visibly flushed, clearly embarrassed after encountering one of those two women. A short while later, once they arrived home, Taesan asked Soso to prepare some warm water for a bath. As she poured the water, Soso said, Young master, I heard you ran into the young lady on your way home. Surprised, Taesan asked how she knew about that. Soso simply laughed and replied, Don't you know? I have eyes and ears all over Wuhan, so something like that. It's easy for me to find out. Taesan muttered, I'm pretty sure she's the one who told that woman about me. Then Soso asked, Is Kyung-won all right after seeing the young lady? Confused, Taesan asked what she meant. Soso continued, Young master, do you not know, or are you just pretending not to know, that Kyung-won has long had feelings for one of the guards always by the young lady's side? From what I know, he's been in love with Miss Seo-yeon for quite some time. Taesan just smiled and thought to himself, so that's why he walked off without waiting for me, because he couldn't even face her. Fear and respect. It's such a strange feeling. In my past life as the heavenly demon, people only ever spoke to me with fear and reverence. Everyone bowed before me. But now, for some reason, I don't feel angry at all when people talk to me casually. Could it be that my soul is blending with Taesan's? It feels like so many interesting things are happening all around me. Later that night, Taesan made his way to a house deep within the forest. That house contained a hidden underground prison beneath the Dragon Sword Corps' training grounds. Kyung-won lit a torch to guide the way, as they made their way down to the underground cell where the captured assassin was being held. Once they arrived at the cell, Kyung-won said, Young master, I've blocked all his pressure points for now, so he won't be able to attack you. But still, he added, he's a savage. Even with his energy sealed, he's capable of anything. Taesan, however, simply let out a faint laugh at Kyung-won's warning. As he entered the prison room, he stared straight at the assassin, his gaze sharp as a blade. At that moment, he noticed the assassin lying motionless on the floor, pretending to be unconscious. Taesan smirked when he saw that the assassin's body was still pulsing with a fair amount of negative energy. He murmured, The most dangerous thoughts belong to assassins, but they also possess incredibly powerful souls. That means I can extract a lot from this one. Now that one of my meridians has been opened, I'll give it a try. Taesan then told Kyung-won to leave. He wanted to handle the assassin himself, with his own two hands. Kyung-won was stunned. Young master, what are you thinking? He's a ruthless assassin and extremely dangerous to face alone. But Taesan replied casually, And what would you do even if I told you? You didn't even notice him hiding up there in the ceiling. Kyung-won tried to reason with him, urging Taesan not to face the assassin alone, especially someone so skilled in martial arts. But with an intimidating glare, Taesan said firmly, Kyung-won, listen carefully. I don't like repeating myself. Leave, now. Kyung-won froze. He couldn't utter another word, his mind overwhelmed by the pressure Taesan had just unleashed. Without another thought, he slowly closed the prison door behind him and left the two alone in the underground cell. Once he reached the dungeon entrance, Kyung-won thought to himself, Just now. I couldn't even breathe under the pressure he gave off. It felt like I was facing someone who had reached the pinnacle of martial arts. Is this really the same young master I've always known? Or has he been hiding his true strength all along, pretending to be weak? As Kyung-won wrestled with his thoughts, a sudden piercing scream echoed from deep inside the dungeon. So loud, it shocked him to his core. But he quickly realized that wasn't Taesan's voice. It was the assassin. What in the world is happening in there? Kyung-won wondered, shaken. The scream wasn't just one of pain. It was filled with desperation, like someone resisting death itself. The thought struck him. If I were dying, would I scream like that? His legs trembled violently. What exactly is Taesan doing to him? Back inside the cell, Taesan was using the Soul-Devouring Demonic Art to draw out the assassin's negative energy, but it was clear that he was struggling. The assassin's soul was far filthier than expected. Taesan muttered, This bastard, he's even more dangerous than I imagined. His soul is completely tainted, corrupted by a lifetime of evil. The demonic soul eater technique was designed to burn and destroy a soul, then extract power from what's left after purification. No wonder it's so hard to separate the filth from the essence. It requires immense strength. But just then, Tae-san felt something when the assassin's soul made contact with his palm. His expression shifted. He immediately stopped the technique, unwilling to risk the heavy consequences it might have on this second life of his. Staring at his hand, Tae-san thought to himself, could this assassin really be too much for me to handle? Once the impure thoughts within a soul are purified, what remains is pure soul energy. However, in this case, the soul had been severely damaged, corrupted by a lifetime of evil deeds. The impure energies had mixed together into one mess. Even though it wasn't a large amount, the energy was too tainted for me to purify at this level. Looks like I'll have to make a trip to the brothel for now. It seems that in this life, my fate isn't to be stained with blood, but with filth. The scene shifts to the fragrant flower house brothel. Inside, the madam was fuming. The assassin she had sent to monitor Tae-san had been captured. "That damn bastard," she snapped. "It's been 2 days since he got caught. He hasn't returned or sent any word. He was the best among all of you." Suddenly, she was startled by a commotion right outside her room. It turned out the assassin had returned, but something was clearly wrong. He could barely stand, and his blank stare made it obvious. He wasn't in his right mind. Then he let out a loud, distorted scream, his eyes rolling back into his head. Alarmed, the madam shouted to her people, telling them to press his pressure point to bring him back to normal. Without hesitation, one of them pressed the point on his neck. Immediately, the assassin's body began to convulse, then melt, collapsing onto the floor in a grotesque puddle. Everyone in the room was horrified by what they saw. And sure enough, all that remained were his bones. His muscles, flesh, and skin had dissolved into a foul-smelling liquid. Seething with rage, the madam hissed, "You bastard young Master Tae-san! So, this is how you want to play? Fine. I swear I'll make you pay." Still burning with anger, she turned to her guard and ordered, "Go fetch Dan-young, the girl who once entertained Tae-san." The guard hesitated, his face pale. "We were preparing to send her to the leader of the Crimson Dragon sect." But she cut him off coldly. "We're sending Dan-young to Tae-san. That's my decision." The guard protested. "If we cancel and send her to Tae-san instead, the Crimson Dragon sect will come after us. Their leader is a regular client here. If that brute finds out, he'll burn this place to the ground. The Crimson Dragon sect is a well-known unorthodox faction. They have serious influence in the Wuhan region." But the madam responded nonchalantly, "I'm well aware. Cancel her visit to the Crimson Dragon sect and let them rage all they want." Then, with a wicked smile, she added, "We'll send young Master Tae-san a very special gift, so he understands exactly who he's dealing with." After some time, a rumor about Tae-san's prowess in the brothel spread far and wide. They said that the second young master of the Golden Wall family possessed a power that could shake every woman who spent the night with him. Because of that, it was no surprise that so many women longed to be with him. They claimed that if they spent just one night with Tae-san, they would become even more beautiful, just like the women who had already been with him. Some even said it felt as if they had been reborn into a new world. People began calling him either a god reincarnated into a human's body, or a demon who used forbidden spells to bind women to him. At first, everyone believed it was just a baseless rumor, a story passed around by bored women. That's what Dan-young herself thought, until the day she was chosen to spend the night with Tae-san. A few days later, Dan-young begged the madam for permission to serve Tae-san. She thought that once she experienced it for herself, she would finally know the truth. But the madam only burst out laughing and said, "What are you thinking? Why would you suddenly want to serve Tae-san? Have you fallen for him? What did he say to you that made you so eager? Did he promise to pay off your debt in exchange for serving him?" When Dan-young explained that Tae-san hadn't said a single word to her, the madam scoffed. "I don't care what he told you. You're nothing more than a worker of this house until every bit of your debt is cleared. So, prepare yourself. You'll be sent to the Crimson Dragon sect to serve their leader." However, the madam quickly changed her mind after Tae-san returned her assassin in a horrifying state. She then plotted to make Tae-san pay for this by pitting him against the Crimson Dragon sect. At that point, she ordered Dan-young to go to Tae-san's residence and serve him instead. As Dan-young walked there, she muttered to herself, "I thought I would be dragged away to serve the leader of the Crimson Dragon sect. But instead, I've ended up in young Master Tae-san's home. Is this my fate? Still, I feel so nervous to meet him again. Will he accept me? What if he sees me as nothing more than a filthy woman? Even so, I still want to see him again." Inside his residence, Tae-san was cultivating, refining the energy he had absorbed through the demonic soul-devouring art. This martial technique wasn't something one could practice freely anytime or anywhere, because its energy was overwhelmingly destructive and extremely difficult to control. But Tae-san had mastered it to the very peak. He could command it at a level comparable to a god. Calling him the pinnacle was no exaggeration. Moreover, the awareness he had gained at the moment of death had resolved the natural instability of the demonic soul-devouring art. Now he could start or stop his cultivation at will, allowing him to use his spare time to refine his energy further. In the midst of his cultivation, Tae-san suddenly opened his eyes. He had sensed someone approaching his chamber. It was Soso. She informed him that a guest had been waiting for him. After allowing the guest inside, Taeson fell silent the moment he realized who it was, Dan-young. He wondered what she could possibly want that made her come to his house in person. At that moment, Taeson noticed that Dan-young's appearance was completely different from before. While other women who had spent the night with him had also changed, Dan-young's transformation was extraordinary. Bowing her head in respect, she said, "Young master, forgive me for coming to you so suddenly. But you have given me a new life. That is why I wish to dedicate my entire existence to you." With her cheeks flushed red and her eyes sparkling, she continued, "Young master, please, allow me to always remain by your side." Hearing this, Taeson muttered to himself. Has her appearance changed because her filthy thoughts were purified by the demonic soul-devouring art? Honestly, this is fascinating. Then, to Soso's shock, Taesan ordered her to find a new place for both Soso and Dan-young to live, one close to his residence. When Soso asked if he intended to make Dan-young his servant, Taesan, already walking out of the room, replied, "Of course she'll be working for me. So, find a proper place where you can both stay together." Hearing this, Soso fell silent, murmuring to herself, "This woman is far too beautiful to be doing a servant's work. And lately, young master has been acting strangely. Could it be that he feels his life is nearing its end?" A short while later, Taeson and Kyungwon arrived at a place known as the Fallen Flower Brothel, one of the top 3 in the Wuhan region. The moment they stood before the building, Taeson laughed, saying he liked the name chosen by its owner. "This name reminds us of petals drifting to the ground, something that has endured much. I'm looking forward to seeing the filthy soul energy hidden within this place." As they stepped inside, Taesan remarked, "For now, I've come here simply to experience a different atmosphere than the last brothel." But before they could go further, Kyungwon turned his gaze away as someone arrogantly called out to Taeson. The voice belonged to Wee Jokshim, the leader of the Crimson Dragon sect. Laughing mockingly, he said, "At first, I was curious about who dared to steal my woman. But after finding out, it turns out you're nothing more than a boy." Immediately, everyone else in the brothel scattered in fear, realizing they were in the presence of the Crimson Dragon sect, a group infamous for their brutality and danger. When Taeson casually asked who the muscular man was, Kyungwon explained, "He's Wee Jokshim, the leader of the Crimson Dragon sect. They're an unorthodox group that has claimed this territory as their own." Taeson sneered, replying, "Aren't they nothing more than bandits? From what I see, they're just trash, completely useless. Why would they even call themselves something like that? It would be better to just ignore garbage altogether." Infuriated at being dismissed, Wee Jokshim shouted, "You bastard, are you ignoring me?" Originally, Taesan had no intention of wasting time with people like this, but he abruptly stopped when Wee Jokshim called him a gigolo. At that moment, a wave of fury surged within him. With piercing eyes, Taesan muttered coldly, "I already despise this pretty-faced bastard. I hated him the moment I laid eyes on him. And yet, this fool dares to call me that?" Seeing Taesan's furious expression, Wee Jokshim burst out laughing and mocked him. "You worthless trash, just look at your face. You really do look like a gigolo." As Taesan calmly walked toward him, he ordered Kyungwon to deal with the 2 men standing behind Wee Jokshim. Following his command, Kyungwon drew his sword and prepared to fight them. With sharp eyes, he glared at the 2 men, who immediately drew their own blades and sneered, "You won't be able to defeat us. We're members of the Crimson Dragon sect." Wee Jokshim then smirked and said, "Who would have thought a brat like you would bring a bodyguard just to look cool? Still, since you've shown some guts, I'll make you an offer. Hand over Dan-young to me right now, and I'll let you live." In response to his taunt, Taesan gave a faint smile and said coldly, "From what I can see, you look more like a woman. Did you think this fight would be won with nothing but your chatter?" Infuriated, Wee Jokshim roared, "You bastard! What did you just say?" He then charged forward at incredible speed, shouting, "It seems you're eager to head straight to hell. Fine, I'll crush that face of yours and send you there myself." Meanwhile, Kyungwon had already defeated the 2 men in a matter of moments. But when he turned around, he was shocked to see Wee Jokshim lunging at Taesan like an eagle swooping down on its prey. Realizing how deadly the attack was, Kyungwon shouted desperately for Taesan to dodge. But instead of retreating, Taesan simply raised his hand with the slightest of movements. And in that instant, Wee Jokshim froze as Taesan's palm struck him squarely on the jaw. The strike was subtle, yet perfectly calculated. Just a single smooth step forward and a minimal motion, enough to stop the attack in its tracks. Taesan muttered to himself, "I held back, just in case this fragile body couldn't handle it. If I had used too much force, this wrist would have snapped." Immediately, Wee Jokshim collapsed to the ground, dead on the spot, frozen in the same posture as when he had launched his attack. With an expressionless gaze, Taesan then asked Kyungwon if he had killed the other 2 men. Kyungwon shook his head, admitting he hadn't. But before he could say more, Taesan coldly ordered him to finish them off, since they had dared to insult him with such words. Before leaving, Taesan added flatly, "If anyone asks who killed that bastard, tell them it was you. I have no interest in being dragged into troublesome affairs. With no choice, Kyung-won reluctantly obeyed, unable to argue against Taison's intimidating words. Looking down at Wee Joksham's lifeless body, he muttered in disbelief. The young master killed the leader of the Crimson Dragon sect with nothing but his bare hand, and with a single strike no less. He even caught an assassin who managed to completely hide his presence. There's no way this is just coincidence. Young master? Who are you really? Somehow, I feel you've become someone completely different from the man I once knew. The next morning, Taeson was seen sitting on his bed, with a woman still asleep beside him. Staring at his hand, he muttered, "My body feels weaker. Is it because I used half of the energy I had painstakingly gathered? This is nothing like when I was the heavenly demon. This body is so fragile, it gets injured even from the slightest impact. For now, I'll have to hold back until all the meridians in this body fully recover. I know I was reckless, wasting half of my energy just to kill that man. But as the heavenly demon, I cannot tolerate being called a gigolo." A little while later, upon returning to his home, Taesan found Seo-yeon inside, sipping a drink that Dan-young had served her. With a flat tone, he asked, "What are you doing here, coming to my house alone like this?" Looking at him, Seo-yeon shot a cold, sharp glare and replied, "So, the young master has returned." Taesan said calmly, "I doubt you came here just to pay me a visit. So tell me, what is your real purpose?" But instead of answering, Seo-yeon asked if Taesan had really brought that servant into his home, knowing full well she was a courtesan. Hearing this, Taesan thought to himself, "This woman never bothers with small talk, straight to the point. But there's no need for me to explain everything to her." Then he replied, "If that's true, then what's the problem?" Seo-yeon shot him another cold glance. She was clearly displeased with his recent behavior, believing he had hurt the young lady. Noticing his disheveled clothes, she asked, "Young master, did you just come back from one of those filthy places again?" When Taesan admitted that he had, Seo-yeon lowered her head in disappointment. She hadn't expected him to continue living like this, especially when he was already engaged to the young lady. With a faint, almost trembling voice, she said, "Young master, I came here only to deliver a message. Your engagement with the young lady has been annulled." But instead of being surprised, Taesan responded with complete indifference. From the very beginning, he had never cared about such things as an engagement. After hearing the real reason why the engagement was cancelled, Taesan said, "So, in short, someone sent a marriage proposal to Yeon Harin. And since that proposal came from the Zhongli family, who are part of the Murim alliance, the head of Yeon Manor was forced into a difficult position, ending the engagement because of my actions." Seo-yeon replied, "But the decision hasn't been finalized yet, because the young lady is still against it." Seeing how hard it was for her to continue, Taesan muttered, "I suppose it must be difficult for her to keep resisting in this kind of situation." Then he added, "I'm sure you didn't come here just to tell me that. Did Yeon Manor send you because they're afraid the Zhongli family might come after me?" After taking a deep breath, Seo-yeon said, "You're right. The young lady ordered me to protect you." Casually, Taesan answered, "I know what you mean. You want to say the Zhongli family are a bunch of vicious people, but let me tell you, they're cowards." A grin spread across Taesan's face as he recalled them. He muttered, "Back when I swept through the Murim alliance, the Zhongli family was one of those I crushed. When the 5 main forces of the alliance, along with the elite warriors from 10 noble families, attacked the demonic cult, it turned into a horrifying war. But no matter how many troops they threw at us, they could never defeat the heavenly demon. At that time, 90% of the Murim alliance forces were slaughtered, and the rest fled once they realized defeat was inevitable. And among those who ran away was the Zhongli family." Taesan then rose to his feet and said, "You're saying you'll protect me? The more I think about it, the more interesting this gets. Let's see what you can do. Will you really be able to stop them, or not?" Later that night, as usual, Taesan headed toward a brothel, but this time, Seo-yeon followed behind him, as ordered by the young lady to guard him wherever he went. With a faint chuckle, Taesan muttered, "Finally, I found someone worth challenging. And today, I managed to open my second meridian point." But then, he noticed Seo-yeon glaring at him with eyes full of hatred, never once taking them off him. Irritated, Taesan said, "If you don't like this, then don't follow me." "It would be better if you just went home," Seo-yeon answered firmly. "I will not go back. This is the least I can do right now." Taking a deep breath, Taesan muttered, "Perhaps everyone thinks I'm the one dragging them into this mess." But suddenly he stopped in his tracks. He could feel the presence of others nearby, emanating a murderous intent so strong it was impossible to ignore. Both Seo-yeon and Kyung-won looked puzzled, not knowing why Taesan halted so abruptly. Kyung-won asked what was going on. Calmly, Taesan replied that he could sense several people surrounding them. Kyung-won was stunned. He couldn't sense anyone besides the 3 of them. But the moment a killing aura flared from behind, Kyung-won instinctively turned around. Sure enough, from the shadows, figures in black cloaks emerged, surrounding them. Kyung-won counted and said there were 3, but Taesan corrected him, saying there were actually 4. One of them was hiding his presence so well, it was nearly undetectable. Realizing he had been discovered, the fourth figure stepped out, revealing himself as the leader of the assassins encircling them. Then he ordered his 3 subordinates to descend from the trees. He said, "It seems there's no point in a surprise attack anymore, since you've already noticed our presence." At that moment, Kyung-wan immediately readied his sword, sensing that the leader of these assassins was not someone easily defeated. The man leapt down from the trees and landed behind his men. With arrogance, he declared, "Listen carefully. If you wish to escape death, you'll all have to come with us." He was clearly trying to intimidate Taeson and his guards into submission. Hearing this, Taeson muttered, "Strange. Why are these unorthodox scum being so polite? That's not how they usually behave." Then he turned to Kyung-wan and asked him to assess the strength of the man standing behind, the assassin leader. Following the order, Kyung-wan fixed his gaze on him, analyzing his aura. He muttered, "Judging by the energy he radiates and the faint scent of blood clinging to him, he's no ordinary figure among the unorthodox." With confidence, Kyung-wan added, "His martial arts level is about 3 tiers below mine." Hearing this evaluation, Taeson burst into laughter and said, "This is the perfect chance to see how much you've grown. So what are you waiting for? Do it now." Without hesitation, Kyung-wan stepped forward to confront them. Immediately, the 3 assassins froze, their faces pale under the crushing weight of Kyung-wan's aura. Their bodies refused to move as he walked past them. They murmured in panic, "What's happening? Why won't my body obey me?" It was clear, Kyung-wan was releasing such overwhelming energy that the 3 realized they were up against someone they could never hope to defeat. As Kyung-wan approached, the leader scoffed arrogantly, "Fool! Do you think you can stop me alone? I can feel the immense energy you're giving off, but listen closely. Stop acting like you're strong. You will never defeat me. So, come quietly." The moment he finished speaking, the man suddenly swung his sword in a swift, silent strike. But Kyung-wan reacted instantly, twisting his body backward to dodge. Catching him off guard, the assassin prepared a second strike, aiming to sever Kyung-wan's neck. But Kyung-wan quickly drew his blade to block, thinking, "If I had been a second slower, I'd already be dead." After parrying the attack, he countered with a slash of his own. A fierce battle erupted, their blades clashing with a force that sent shockwaves rippling through the air. At first, the fight looked evenly matched, both sides displaying incredible skill, but it didn't take long for Kyung-wan to turn the tide. As he narrowly avoided another slash, the assassin thought in shock, "What is this? I never expected him to be this strong. I underestimated him, thinking he was just the second young master's guard." Spotting what he believed was an opening, the assassin gathered all his strength and leapt forward, slashing down with everything he had, certain that Kyung-wan could never dodge in time. On the other side, Seo-yeon panicked and said, "Master, we must help him. This situation is far too dangerous." But Taeson replied calmly, "There's no need to help. This fight will end with a single strike." The moment Taeson said that, the sound of clashing blades echoed through the air. A flash of steel shone as Kyung-wan's sword sliced cleanly, severing one of the assassin's hands. The man screamed in agony as his hand was flung into the air, unable to believe he had lost to someone who was merely a guard. Watching the fight, Seo-yeon muttered in disbelief, "This can't be possible." He only needed 5 swings to defeat someone of that caliber. From behind her, Taeson said, "What a pity. He only managed to cut off his hand. He needs to train harder if he wants to kill someone like that effortlessly." Seo-yeon heard his words, laced with disappointment, and turned to glance at him. She murmured to herself, "Kyung-wan was never this strong before. Since when did he reach such a level in such a short time? Could it be the young master gave him an elixir or some kind of medicine?" Then Taeson said, "What are you standing around for? Deal with the remaining trash, but don't kill them. I have questions for them. Just hit their pressure points so they can't move." Receiving the order, Seo-yeon moved swiftly, and in no time she had subdued 2 of the remaining assassins with precise strikes to their pressure points. But to her shock, she realized one of them had suddenly vanished. She froze, then turned sharply, only to see the missing assassin charging straight at Taeson. His blade was aimed at Taeson's throat, confident that he was the weakest among them. But in a flash, Kyung-wan appeared and slammed the assassin's head into the ground, knocking him unconscious. Kyung-wan then turned and asked Taeson if he was all right. But his words caught in his throat when he saw Taeson's cold gaze, directed not at him, but at the assassin who had managed to escape. Taeson muttered, "What is he doing? He chose to save me, instead of chasing down the one who fled." Feeling the weight of Taesan's eyes, Kyung-wan clenched his fists and said, "Master, I apologize for letting one of them get away." Taesan looked at him for a moment and thought, "If this had happened back when I was the heavenly demon, such failure would have been unforgivable. And yet, this time I don't feel the same rage. Could it be that this body's soul is suppressing the fury that should be boiling inside me?" Finally, Taesan said, "There's no need to chase him. It could put you in danger. Just tie up the 3 bastards we caught." A short while later, after binding the 3 assassins, Taesan asked, "Now that we've caught these 3 bastards, what should we do with them?" Would killing them in the most painful way possible be the best option? Hearing that, their faces went pale, as though Tae-san truly intended to kill them. The tone in his voice filled them with a deep, paralyzing fear. One of them whispered, "Master, please, have mercy. I promise I'll answer any question you ask." Even after saying that, none of the three dared to reveal who had sent them. Seeing their silence, Tae-san said again, "Listen carefully. Since you refuse to speak, I will make sure you die in a way you can't even imagine." Immediately, one of them screamed and blurted out, "Master, we're from the Crimson Dragon sect." The one who sent us was the Vice Master. Before coming here, we beat up anyone who refused to pay protection tax. We also caused trouble at an inn because they refused to serve us. He was so panicked he started babbling things he shouldn't. Then he fell silent as Tae-san turned away. Tae-san ordered Kyung-won to take the three captives and said, "As long as they keep talking, they live. Have someone write down everything they say. The moment they stop speaking, kill them all." Nearby, Seo-yeon muttered, "Does the young master really want to go to the Fallen Flower brothel right now, after everything that just happened? He's insane." A little later they arrived at the Fallen Flower. It didn't take long before Tae-san picked one of the entertainers waiting for him. Kyung-won and Seo-yeon stood guard at the door, not exchanging a single word. Suddenly a woman's scream rang out all the way to the ground floor, their faces flushed crimson. Seo-yeon glanced at Kyung-won to see how he would react and said, "Kyung-won, don't you want to go in and check on the young master?" Blushing, Kyung-won replied, "I have no intention of going in. We're just supposed to stand guard here until morning." Seo-yeon murmured, "Why is he acting like that? Does this kind of screaming happen every time the young master comes here?" Kyung-won answered, "That's exactly why I was so embarrassed to bring you here. I knew you wouldn't be able to stand the screams." Meanwhile, the three captured assassins fell silent when the scream echoed in their heads, the sound assaulting their senses. This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.